Didn't matter if you were an indentured servant or a slave, if you were subjected to a severe whipping, they whipped crap equally severely on a white back, just as it did on a black back. They were treated equally horrifically and suffered equal horrific punishments. But African slavery could be transferred from generation to generation. If you were an African slave who had been brought out of Barbados and you had children, your children were born into slavery. If you were a white indentured servant who had been condemned to servitude and you had children on the island, they were born free. So there is a marked legal distinction.
There is the concept of the white Negro, and certainly, you know, in a legal sense, they probably were slaves because they were enumerated as part of the chattels, in other words, the property of the individual who held their indentures. So in that sense, you know, they were no different legally from black slaves.
Despite Scotland being a rich source of indentured labour, demand on the island outstripped supply. But there was a solution. War.
Things were taking a dramatic turn when Oliver Cromwell invades Scotland at the Battle of Dunbar. On one hand, the Hayes lose control of the island. On the other hand, there's a new supply of labour. Prisoners of war. The ultimate answer is to transport them, and Barbados is where they're sent.
Transportees were shackled and kept below deck on a voyage that lasted anything from 8 to 10 weeks. Conditions were so bad that many of them died long before they reached the Caribbean. There are no records of how traders treated their Scottish cargo, but we do know what they would have faced on arrival, thanks to the writings of visitors to the island, like Richard Ligon, who published A True and Exact History of the Island of Barbados in 1657.
This island is the dunghill, whereon England doth cast forth its rubbish. Rogues and whores and such like people are those which are generally brought here in the most unsupportable captivity, grinding at the mills, attending the furnaces, or digging in the scorching island, having nothing to feed on but potato roots. Bought and sold from one planter to another, or attached as horses and beasts for the debts of their masters, being whipped at the whipping posts as rogues for their master's pleasure.
Winston Gill, of Scottish descent, has worked as ranger at St Nicholas Abbey for 30 years.
To most black people, they think they were the only ones that were in slavery. But to some person who understand and know history, is that all two races was in slavery, the white and the black. And the white was the first slave in Barbados. But in the 17th century, a lot of the white people that were doing manual labor on the estates were driven off in preference to black, because their production was not as great as the black. So then they went on to, some went on to America, some went on to other Caribbean islands. Well, the ones that stayed still continued to weather the storm on the island. The white people were mainly centered around Bath and St. John, Churchill, and that area. The Scottish still left behind things like haggis and pudding and sauce. People will tell you that the slaves invented pudding and sauce, but it was never true. Pudding and sauce is a Scottish recipe. What they call haggis, we call it jug-jug down here.
I find all the family living here, but the old ancestors come from overseas. I only know my great-grandmother. I only hear a bit from her, that how her parents come from these islands and so, you know.
Joyce and Nita are Erlene Downey's sisters, who also live in a chattel house in Martins Bay.
I love my fishing.
What kind of fishing?
Funny amateurs, funny rocks, just throw a line. And just stars at my range, catch my fish.
Fantastic. Did you sell the fish, or was it
No,
just
I keep my fish for me to eat.
in your
I used to
garden?
go fishing
Oh, you're
too.
fishing as well, then?
Especially at night when you see draw. I get a lantern and I go in the sea and catch lobsters too.
It's not that hard a life. Eating lobster. That sounds great.
That's a great hobby. A great hobby. Right, sir.
Stop here? Yeah.
I want to breadfruit.
My lady, there's a stick up there and a knife up there.
The Redlegs of Barbados run a barter economy. Everyone helps one another. Some breed pigs, others grow breadfruit, some still fish. Between them, they survive as a unit, a community.
My name is full name Eric St. Clair. Bailey.
So they're really Scottish names. Yeah. Do you know anything about your Scottish connection?
In my years gone by, I never taught us nothing, so you know, like our roots and things, we never where we really away from.
It's like hiding roots.
That's a shame, isn't it? That you don't
Yeah.
know where you came from.
It's kind of a shame.
Because like your grandparents or your parents never sit down, right? And like you would try to form a conversation and then ask them certain questions like which part of your parents are away from, you know? And they say, all of them say them say. You know what I'm saying? So we can't go no more, we can't ask no more. Back in the years of slavery, I bought the whites here so to work on plantation, right? But they couldn't really manage the sun. And that's how I think that's how they get the name of the Redlegs, right? Because sun scorched them, like burn them up. Right? So that is how I understand it.
It came around to that red leg thing. All the youngsters nowadays just looking at you and saying, oh, you was this and that. Just get to know you first and then make a judgment. Yeah.
You still got a lot of racism there though. Cause first thing you start about the skin and thing, and you know they try to keep it down and things like from years gone back, you know, like slavery days and all that kind of foolishness that still know that race who they buy that cause them to be slaves and things, you know. They still try to keep it down, okay?
But I have one thing to tell them. I asked them where I was born 400 years ago. I don't know about slavery. I come into freelance.
My name is Eustace Norris. Well, I understand from my old parents, my family came as slaves, white slaves. That's all I know. There were any plantations. My old grandfather, they were in the land. They were in the land. My father worked in the land, in the factory making sugar. Well, they had to put them on the shelter because they couldn't stand the heat. I worked in the plantation overseas. I ride the fields and do the books, you know.
What is it you love about Barbados?
What I love about it, we're born here. I'm born here, so this is my little island.
So you're complete Barbadian, you're not Scottish, you're Barbadian.
Well, I'm born in Barbados. I'm my Scottish, maybe great-great-great-grandfathers. That's all I could tell you.